It is Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen, and if you've been following the channel for a while now, you know it is time for me to discuss your hot takes on the Chicago Bulls. If you're new to the channel, we do this every Wednesday, so if you have a hot take on the Bulls that you would like for me to feature in next week's video, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I try to get to as many as I can. No obvious trolling hot takes, though. I am not going to react to a take that says that Felicio is a better player than Giannis, as an example. I'm just not going to go there. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Let's get us kicked off with our first hot take, which comes to us from Milan M. If AK brings the Bulls franchise back into title contention within the next 5 years or so, he is solidified as the best current GM president in the league. So I assume you're also factoring in his success with the Nuggets because, yeah, we have to admit what he did with that Nuggets team during his time there as an assistant GM and then a GM before becoming the Bulls executive vice president was pretty impressive. I mean, the Nuggets team post Carmelo Anthony leaving, they were pretty irrelevant for the most part. And the fact that he turned them into a contender just purely building through the draft and not even with a top lottery pick says a lot about his ability to assess talent and formulate a roster that works well together. He drafted Nikola Jokic in the second round, the guy who many thought he wouldn't even make it in this league because of his weight, the fact that he was slow and he wasn't athletic whatsoever, but look at him now, and he's one of the best centers in the league. You know, he drafts Jamal Murray as the number 7 pick ahead of guys like Chris Dunn and Dragon Bender. And then, of course, he took a huge chance in drafting Michael Porter Jr. with the number 14 pick, and it's paid off nicely for them. Now, as far as the Bulls, you know, and them becoming title contenders within 5 years and what that means for Arturas's legacy, I mean, 5 years is kind of a long time, but obviously I know building a team into contention and that it takes time. And in order for him, in my view, to be considered the best executive in the game, it would need to be more impressive if he was able to take the Bulls squad to title contention sooner, right? Let's be real with ourselves. If you're a Bulls fan, this team isn't that relevant. So to be able to take this franchise and put them back on the map as title contenders in, say, just 2 to 3 years from now, then yeah, I would actually have to agree, because this would be the second team that Arturas has completely turned around, and a Bulls organization that has often just been joked about across the league as always, you know, being a complete mess. So to change that sentiment would be a pretty big selling point for him in displaying his overall capabilities as an NBA executive. Next up, we've got Ystrom. This is from the Discord. Be sure to join the Discord if you're interested. Link down below in the description. Coby should continue to come off the bench as a scoring option, similar to how Harden was used in his first 3 NBA seasons. This allows Coby to play to his strengths and slowly develop his playmaking ability. Let's not compare Coby White to James Harden, which I don't think you were trying to do, more so just using it as an example for how Harden started off his career, which you're right. I do think that, you know, that was very valuable for Harden and his development in being a scoring spark off the bench and developing him into the player that he is today. I do agree that Coby should continue to come off the bench, for now anyway, just because we've seen him play so much better off the ball than just being, you know, the primary facilitator as a point guard. And with LaVine being our best player and a shooting guard, we really need someone in that starting spot who can run the offense better for LaVine, Patrick Williams and Markkanen for that matter as well. And yes, I do agree that this also allows Coby to excel at what he does best in playing off the ball as a shooting guard off the bench. And it also enables Billy Donovan to work him into the rotation, playing the point and developing those skills further. I was a little concerned with how he played last night. You know, that wasn't very settling for the most part, but more or less I agree. I think that him coming off the bench will allow him to really improve upon what he's good at right now, but then also work on the areas that he needs to develop a little bit more. Next up, I believe it's Teg. Joakim Noah is better than Wendell right now. No. I mean, I assume you mean the Joakim Noah of today at age 36 who just retired, and you're not saying Joakim Noah in his prime, because yes, I 100% agree with that. I think anyone would that Noah was a better center than Wendell is currently. But Noah, a better center than Wendell right now? I mean, I don't know if you saw Wendell play, or sorry, not Wendell. I don't know if you saw Noah play his final seasons. I love the guy. He's still one of my all-time favorite players ever in the NBA, but he had fallen off pretty substantially. And last I checked, Wendell is a 21-year-old who is a decent defender and not that horrible on offense either. This one is from Brandon. Zach LaVine will reach a new career high for in-game this season, where he's currently at 49. You know, there's a game, there was a few weeks back, and even last night's game for that matter, and I'm blanking which game it was a few weeks ago, where it looked like LaVine was on pace to break his career high. And when I looked it up to see what LaVine's career high was at that time and saw that it was only 49, I was honestly shocked that LaVine throughout his whole career has never broken 50. I mean, for a guy that is averaging 28 points per game, you know, last year he averaged a little over 25, you would think that he would have at least one game where he scored more than 50 points. So yes, I do think we will see LaVine reach a new career high this season, really just because I'm shocked we haven't seen LaVine score more than 50 points in a game for a guy that is a walking bucket. I mean, we almost saw it last night. He most certainly would have gotten there had he actually played in the fourth quarter. And I suspect as we get closer to the end of the season and the Bulls are competing for a playoff spot, yeah, there will likely be some games where LaVine will absolutely take things over and try to get the win. So the next two I'm about to do are somewhat related. And by related, I mean they are on the opposite sides of the spectrum, but a related topic. I'll start with this one from Noah Fenton, and he says, the only way we will make the playoffs this year is if Lauri and Wendell don't get injured for the rest of the season. So I'm taking this, you know, assuming that no other players are going to be getting injured as well, because I almost don't even want to say it, but if LaVine gets injured, yeah, that's going to impact the Bulls' ability to make the playoffs, even if you have Wendell and Lauri healthy. But I think you're saying all other guys remaining healthy, or at least for the most part anyway. The only way the Bulls make the playoffs is if these guys stay healthy, meaning Wendell and Lauri. I mean, yes and no. First of all, if it's just a game or two, you know, likely wouldn't be an issue. But if we're talking about another 2, 3, 4 weeks or even more, I think it's just one of them being out. You know, the Bulls could still make the playoffs because, again, they would still have LaVine, they would have Patrick Williams, the vets like Thaddeus Young, Garrett Temple. It would be a challenge, don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's still key players on this roster, so to have them get injured again, yeah, it would be a problem. But to say the only way that we would make the playoffs this season is if Lauri and Wendell don't get injured, I wouldn't go that far, just because we would still have LaVine. Now, if both of them got injured, then I would have to agree. The Bulls likely aren't going to make the playoffs because as good as LaVine and Thaddeus Young are, you can't compete night in and night out when you're having to rely on Gafford, Cornette, and Felicio to play big minutes at either the 4 or the 5 to give Thaddeus some rest. So like I said, then we have the opposite side of the spectrum with this take from Leonardo Vaz, who says either Lauri or Wendell need to be traded for the Bulls to be contending for a playoff seed. Wendell Carter Jr. most likely. So you've got one who says, you know, we need both of these guys to even make the playoffs, while the other is saying the only way we can contend for the playoffs is if we trade one of them. So no, I don't think Lauri or Wendell need to be traded in order for the Bulls to be contending for a playoff seed, mainly because the Bulls are already contending for a playoff spot right now. I mean, I do recognize that there is value in moving Wendell for a stronger, better fit center, but I honestly don't know if the Bulls can make that kind of shift where it would be worth it getting rid of Wendell, who is still young, has shown flashes of strong potential. I mean, I hear a lot of people say we should trade Wendell for Andre Drummond. Granted, Otto Porter would have to be included in that to make the money work. And in theory, it sounds nice because Drummond is a traditional center that can crash the boards, play defense, and get you offense as well. But Drummond, he's older, likely is going to command a lot more money in free agency. And do you want to lock up a guy like Drummond in a large contract, or even risk him walking in free agency if you can't agree on contract terms, and then you've just lost Wendell for nothing? Lauri is a bit more interesting because he's going to be a restricted free agent. His trade value across the league, in my view, is probably higher than Wendell, so you could probably get more for him. And because he's going to be a restricted free agent, it's possible some team might overpay him, and you don't want to be forced or be put in a position where you'd be forced to match a very high offer. Then you may have to look at him, you know, to get some value in return before that happens. But even All of that being said, I don't think the Bulls will move Lauri. I think, they'll match any offer he receives in the offseason within reason. I believe they see the value in having a guy like Markkanen as a big man who can spread the floor, and under the right coaching, he can be a very solid player in this league. And he hasn't even hit his prime yet. Let's do one more, and it's actually 3 all combined into one because they all relate to Patrick Williams. We've got Hitty390, who says Patrick Williams will be an all-star in 2 years' time. His emergence will come as a surprise, similar to Bam Adebayo. Then Airball, I believe it is, or maybe it's Airballo. Patrick Williams will average over 20 points per game next season. And then finally, we have hashtag Neckbeard Felicio for MVP. Great name, by the way. P. Will score 23.4 points per game next year. So all of these pertain to Patrick Williams and his future. I'll start with the first one, in Williams becoming an all-star in 2 years' time. It's a stretch. I won't say it's impossible because we've seen it in the league happen before. Like you mentioned, Bam, kind of came out of nowhere. Pascal Siakam is another one that comes to mind. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is another one. I know he hasn't been named an all-star, but I think he will be in the near future. So yes, I could see it, especially given how we've seen Williams be more aggressive on offense with the recent lineup change. Not so much last night, but the night before, or I guess the game before I should say, he did very well. I think he still has more development to go through, and 2 years is likely too soon for him to all of a sudden just be an all-star. But it's not out of the question though, the kid has a lot of potential. And then, of course, the other two relate to Williams, his scoring for the next season, one at 20 points per game, the other at a very specific number of 23.4. So no, I mean, I always love the optimism among some of these takes and would love to see Patrick Williams get there, but Williams is a defensive first-minded guy, at least at this point in his career. I do think he'll develop into a very well-rounded two-player with time, and I do think it's possible that at some point in the future, Williams could average that amount or even more, but not next season. I mean, the guy is averaging, a little around 10 points per game right now. You're talking an over 100% increase in his scoring output in just 1 year. And keep in mind, he's still going to play alongside Zach, who will be taking up a good chunk of scoring, Coby White, another scorer, and Markkanen. Hopefully anyway, if the Bulls can retain him in free agency, that is for Markkanen. So he's going to be competing against a lot of guys to put up those kind of numbers next year. And to see him take that kind of leap on offense in just one season, I think is very doubtful. I do appreciate the optimism though, I like it. I'll wrap it up for there now though, guys. Let me know what you guys think of this week's takes, and feel free to add your own in the comments for next week's video if you want it to be considered. As always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.